Photo captured by Steelers, DK Metcalf going up and grabbing a pass at camp. Aaron Rodgers is hoping to see some form of that this season. Now, guys, for more of what's going on in Steelers training camp, our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, joins us now. Brooke, what have you been seeing at Steelers practice?
RC, I can tell you I have not seen much of those one-handed catches from DK Metcalf, at least when they matter in those team periods, 11 on 11, not even in 7 on 7. In fact, at yesterday's practice, the last time the Steelers were out on the field in Latrobe, Aaron Rodgers tried for DK Metcalf deep twice and missed him both times in that 7 on 7. So I asked wide receiver Scotty Miller, hey, are some of these misconnections because you guys didn't get a full offseason with Aaron Rodgers? Obviously no OTAs. During minicamp, he wasn't in the team periods. And he said, yeah, 100%. But then he said that we can learn through failure. So the good news is they are doing a lot of learning. And on the flip side of that, RC, you're going to like this. One of the reasons the Steelers offense doesn't look great is because their defense looks pretty incredible. Big reason for that, of course, is the addition of Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey in the backfield, and up front, those pass rushers, even with TJ Watt not practicing a ton, they don't want to wear him out before the season gets started, getting some younger guys, some reps in there. Jack Sawyer, Nick Herbig have looked good. Y.A. Black up front on that D-line has had a lot of batted balls, so this defense looks great. The offense has a little bit to go.
Brooke, thank you so much. You look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers are becoming. Omar Khan, the general manager, is having the most unlike Pittsburgh Steeler offseason that we've ever seen. But Mina, if this offense does struggle early, what is going to be the formula for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win?
Well, I think they got to be better at running the ball. I think this is kind of a run-first offense. Aaron Rodgers is the point guard. And you have to have a top 10 defense to carry that. Dan, I'm sure you're going to agree with me on this. If this defense doesn't get better at defending motion, it's dead on arrival against the best offenses in the league. This was a huge problem against the Baltimore Ravens. It was a huge problem all season long. They were a bottom 5 unit in success rate when offenses used motion. When offenses didn't use motion, they were just outside the top 10. That is going to require not just new talent, but also better communication, coaching, because to my eye, Dan, that was probably the single biggest issue with this defense last season.
Oh, 100%. It was their major flaw. And RC, you know this better than anybody, so I'll ask you, what's the only thing that matters in Pittsburgh?
Championships.
Okay, so championships. The Steelers' defense has been the weakness of this football team in the playoffs, over this playoff drought that they're in. Everyone always correlates quarterbacks that fall short in the playoffs. For a defense that always is that top 5, top 7 defense, this is their playoff history since 2017 and what they've given up. 45, 48, 42, 31, and 28. So yes, this defense is going to have to, at least early on, maybe burden some of the weight until the offense catches up. If this is a playoff football team, it won't matter what the offense does if the defense doesn't play better. And that defense that you know has been a calling card of that organization for the longest time is the weakness when it matters the most. So they're in the division with Lamar Jackson, and everyone says, well, Lamar is a different quarterback in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. Well, Pittsburgh, your defense is a different unit in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. And unless that gets better, I don't care who your quarterback is. You can't get 31 hung on you a game and think you're going to beat anybody.
You know, it's not about the way you carry a team early. It's about how often you have to do it. How often does TJ Watt have to make a sack late in the game to seal the deal? How often in the past does Minka Fitzpatrick have to get a pick? And so there's so many different things that this defense can't allow itself to be worn out.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So last year on the show, we talked about the defense versus motion. We've talked about motion on the show for 4 or 5 years. Mina just intimated it again last year. Why? Why have they struggled so bad?
So the first thing is they don't practice against it a lot. How often have we come in here and talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers offense being an offense that motions all the time? So you don't get to see it in practice. If you're the Los Angeles Rams, you see it all the time. If you're the San Francisco 49ers, you see it all the time. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, an offense that has been mostly stagnant, it's difficult to get those reps. Now, let's think about back in the day. The Pittsburgh Steelers could run the football, but they could stop the run. Why was that? Because you're spending every practice, you're hitting Deuce Staley, and also you're out here hitting Jerome Bettis. Mina, you have something else?
No, Yeah, I loved your point. I was just going to jump in and say I would argue Patrick Queen might be the single most important player on the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this year. This is his second year in the system. They brought him in to quarterback the middle of the field. And guys, just how often did we see, it was specifically against the Baltimore Ravens, who happened to be in their own division. It felt like Todd Monk and that offense were toying with the second level of the Steelers defense. They have to spend their entire offseason keying in on that because if they can't get that fixed, if they're not consistently displaced or not displaced the way they were last year, I just don't see how it gets better, even with the great pass rush.
Yeah, and I love that point. I love your point. Mike Tomlin's like one of the greatest coaches ever.
It has to get fixed. He has to put his imprint on this defense, but in the innovative way that he's moved, the way he coaches the people, he has to be more innovative in the way that he coaches schematically as well. And to the
Steelers probing Commanders for Terry McLaurin, but deal seems unlikely for now. PATSBURGH. The saga involving Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders has just gained another chapter, this time with the Pittsburgh Steelers taking the lead behind the scenes. According to new information released by DK Pittsburgh Sports, the AFC team reportedly made a call to explore the possibility of acquiring the star receiver, although, so far, negotiations have not progressed. The interest comes amid a contract dispute between McLaurin and the Commanders. The player formally requested a trade after the parties were unable to reach an agreement on an extension. And although Washington has publicly maintained its no-trade stance, other teams are monitoring the situation closely. Steelers testing the waters with Washington, according to sources close to the situation. Steelers general manager Omar Khan has reached out directly to Adam Peters and the Commanders front office to discuss a possible deal for McLaurin. The intention to form an explosive duo alongside DK Metcalf, another star receiver recently acquired by Pittsburgh. However, while the interest was real, talks have apparently cooled. There's no indication that a trade is imminent at this point. Still, the mere fact that the Steelers made the call shows that the team is willing to take a bold step in search of a dominant offensive lineup for 2025. McLaurin would be the perfect addition in Pittsburgh. The move shouldn't come as a surprise to those who closely follow the Steelers. The franchise underwent an offensive overhaul this offseason, with the departure of George Pickens and the explosive arrival of Metcalf. Although he is currently Aaron Rodgers' top target, the rest of the receiving core lacks depth and explosiveness. Besides Metcalf, the team boasts experienced but declining players like Robert Woods, as well as youngsters like Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson, and other rotational players like Scotty Miller and Ben. Adding McLaurin would give Rodgers a top-tier receiving duo and transform the Steelers' offense into one of the most feared units in the league. For coach Mike Tomlin, this potential combination of talent could be the difference in taking Pittsburgh back to the top of the AFC. Washington is still holding out, but for how long? Even with interest from other teams, the Commanders remain firm in their stance. Terry McLaurin is not available for trade, but sources close to the players say he doesn't just want a contract worthy of a WR1, he wants to be treated like one. Samuel's recent arrival in Washington may have contributed to McLaurin's dissatisfaction, as he wants to remain the team's primary offensive target. The internal dynamics appear to have changed, and with that, tension in the negotiations has increased. Despite this, everything indicates that the scenario is moving toward a reconciliation. The front office appears willing to keep McLaurin and should eventually present an offer that meets his demands. But, as always, in the NFL, an irresistible offer can change the course of history at any moment. Conclusion: Adora Jarther, the Steelers' move didn't result in an immediate deal, but it did shed light on a situation that could still evolve quickly. While McLaurin awaits a resolution, be it a new contract or a new home, other franchises may be inspired by Pittsburgh's boldness and enter the fray. The question remains, will Washington hold out until the end, or will market pressure and the players' desire ultimately prevail? Time will tell.